And then I'll just pass over to Jen to welcome us again.
I will be all of a few seconds because I don't want to block between what's going to be hopefully a really interesting and insightful conversation and the chance for you, as Liz said, to direct what you want to learn more about. But I'm Jen Sproul. I'm the Chief Exec of the Institute of Internal Communication. And I just want to welcome you on and say it's great to have people here showing an interest and learning more, but also grateful that past alumni are joining us because those are the ones that can tell you what it's like as well. So I just want to say welcome and thank you so much for joining us and introduce Liz Cochrane. I'm sure many of you heard the name of, or maybe you've had conversation with, who is the course director of the MA and will guide us through this. But as we say, this is your chance to ask any questions. No stupid questions are asked about what the MA and what's involved.
Excellent. Thanks very much both to Jen and to Emily. Yeah, so I'm Liz, I'm the course director, and I'm also the leader for the first module on the Masters. And we thought what we would do is we'll start off with some introductions and just talk you at a very high level through the different modules within the Masters as we're introducing ourselves. And then as soon as we've done that, I'll ask our two alumni, Nicola and Emily, to introduce themselves as well. And I suspect that those are the people that you'll be most interested in hearing from. We'll be able to answer whatever questions you would like to ask us as a course team, but it's actually, I think, one of the benefits of this session is really understanding by people who've been there, done it, and got not the t-shirt, but actually the master's qualification and the funny hat, etc., as a result of it. So, as I say, I'm Liz, I'm the course director, so I've kind of got overall responsibility. And then I'm also responsible for module 1, which is sort of the introduction to the Masters. And that's a module where we're really taking a deep look at organisations themselves, both the pressures facing organisations, but what about organisations, the culture of organisations, the environment that we're operating in? Because understanding that, understanding the culture, understanding the subcultures, thinking about things like leadership, power, and how that works in organisations is so important when it comes to thinking about how to manage communication. Then the other key part of module 1 is sense making, which is an absolutely fascinating and mind-blowing topic, really thinking about how do we make sense of the information all around us and what can we learn from that in order to make our communication and our facilitation of communication much more impactful. So that's me and module 1. I'm going to hand over to Ollie to talk about modules 2 and 3.
Hi everyone, I'm Ollie Howard. I'm the module leader for modules 2 and 3. Really great to have so many of you here this afternoon. Thanks very much for joining. A little bit of background about me before I say a little bit about the 2 modules. I have spent most of my career in corporate communication or internal communication roles at a number of organisations up to director level. During the time when I was working in internal communication, I also became an IOIC board member. I was on the board for 6 years, which was a great experience. Jen, thank you for that. I'm a fellow of the IOIC, and I've also now work at the CIPD as head of membership, which is the Institute for people working in HR, L&D and other connected professions. I hopped across into that world because working in internal communication made me really interested in what makes organizations tick and how organizations can get the best out of their people in order to deliver results. So being involved in the world of people management more broadly was something that always really appealed to me. And I really enjoy combining that with the Masters because we do so much excellent research over at the CIPD into how organizations can get the very best out of their people and create great experiences of work for people. And internal communication is integral to that. So it's a really nice marriage of things from my perspective. In terms of the masters, the second module, so the first of the two that I lead on, in that one we kind of really build on what Liz has outlined in module 1 by focusing on strategy and impact. So what does the evidence tell us about what makes internal communication practice impactful? What delivers a difference to the bottom line or the outputs or the performance of organizations, and how can we design internal communication that increases our chances of having those sorts of effects? So we look at different models of internal communication strategy. We look at understanding business strategy a little more clearly so that we can think about how internal communication supports that. And we also look at the employment relationship, particularly through the lens of employee engagement and what that really means, and the role of internal communication in promoting it, and how useful that is as a concept to us as internal communicators. And as with everything on the Masters, we encourage you to be critical, to think about some of the things that might be kind of held as self-evident truths in the profession, where actually a bit more scrutiny or specificity would really help us to be able to understand the roles that we're performing. So that's module 2, and it's one I really enjoy teaching. Module 3 that follows that really looks at influence. That's the core idea there. So we look at how we can be influential within our organizations, particularly through the relationships we hold with the most senior people in our organizations. So when you hear people talk about becoming a trusted advisor, that's what module 3 is really about. How do we position ourselves within the organization? And to get to answers about that, we look at things like what differs between individuals? How do different leaders see the world, and how can we connect to them in ways that are individual to what they're trying to achieve in the organization and their personalities? We look at how we can apply theories about influence and persuasion to those individual relationships. And we look at different models of business partnering, coaching, consultancy, and which of those might be most effective for the context in which practitioners like you are working. In that module, we also look at a couple of other concepts which are really helpful and interesting. I think we look at collaboration and knowledge and how that's managed in organizations, and again, the role internal communicators can play in supporting that. And we also look at the future of work. How is the experience of work, how's the way work is done changing around us, and what might that mean for the future of internal communication, and again, how we position ourselves within the organizations we work in. Loads of really fascinating stuff there, and I really enjoy working with students on understanding how to apply it in all of the different contexts that you come from. Liz, I'll hand back to you to talk about module 4, I guess.
Okay, yeah, thanks. You will find that I'm responsible for module 1, but I pop up all the way through, really, sort of, and do various sessions all the way through. And I'm actually deputising for Donma, who is our module leader for module 4. Unfortunately, Donma has a funeral this afternoon, so she wasn't able to attend. But module 4 is really very much around equipping you to be able to undertake research at the most rigorous level possible. So qualitative and quantitative research, to make sure that everything that you're doing in your practice is evidence-based. And as part of that, what you'll be doing is going out and doing a live piece of research in your organisation. We haven't talked about the various assessments, and I'm sure that will come up in the questions. But for the first 3 modules, the assignments that you get set are all about applying the different theories, concepts that we just talked about to your organisation, because it's very much about theory into practice. The 4th one, you actually get to choose a topic with support from ourselves. One of us will supervise you, and you'll then be able to go out and do live research into a topic where, you know, sort of communication can really make a difference to an organisational issue. and, as with all of the assignments all the way through, come up with very clear conclusions and practical strategic level recommendations, because again, that's a hallmark of all the assessments that you do. So that starts to give you a feel. Actually, a couple of other things I'll just mention, because I'm not sure that we picked up on them as we went through. There's a very strong theme of different sort of psychology running through the each of the modules. You know, thinking about sense making and other psychological concepts in module 1, thinking very much around the psychology of change. We also look at neuroscience. We've got Hilary Scarlett, who's a great expert on neuroscience and communication in Unit 2, and indeed there's the psychology of decision making in Unit 3. I think as well, unless I had a moment where I didn't hear anything, Ollie, change in Unit 2 is another big theme, isn't it? I can't remember if you
we cover
mentioned
change in Unit 2, and I didn't mention that we cover rhetoric and discourse in Unit 3 as well.
Yeah,
we do.
Yeah, so all sorts of a broad range of things, and you'll be able to quiz Nicola and Emily Scard more on that. The other thing I'll just mention in terms of the course team is you've met myself and Ollie. I've mentioned Donma. We've got another additional couple of members of the team who are supporting in terms of speaking, etc. Jenny Davenport and Ranjit Sidhu. So there's a whole range of people that you will be working with during the programme, but you'll see a lot of me and Ollie during the time. Okay, so that's enough from us. Onto the important people now. Nikki, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, so I'm Nikki Gallagher. I work for Hartness Kennett, which is a small internal communication consultancy, and I've been working with them for about 20 years now. And prior to that, I worked in-house in internal communication at Prudential Assurance for about 10 years. So yeah, I've done both in-house and consultancy, and took the plunge last year, which feels like I probably did it 20 years too late, to be honest, but I'm really glad I did it. And yeah, massively enjoyed the course.
Excellent. And Emily Scard, over to you.
Thanks, Liz. Yeah, my name's Emily Scard. I work for a global facilities management company. Also completed the IOIC Masters course last year, and yeah, it's brought so much value to me in my day-to-day role. So I'm very pleased to be here today to share some of my experiences.
Excellent. So two people who's will still have the memories fresh in their minds and can help give you that student perspective. Can I also just welcome Melissa, who's IOIC's marketing manager and has also joined us this afternoon. So hi, Melissa, great to have you here as well. And I think now we're on to the important part of the afternoon, which is for you to start asking your questions. And you know, we really value the student experience, and just put a lot of onus on the student experience in the Masters, and listening to students is a huge part of that. And we always try and start it like as of now. And so I'm going to hand over to Ollie, who will explain how you can be asking your burning, or not even burning, just the sort of back of your head questions. And you're going to be our master of ceremonies then, Ollie, I think, in terms of farming out the questions and getting responses.
Overstating the role, Liz, for sure. Yes, if you have questions, and as Liz says, we know this is a big decision, right? So we completely understand that. You'll want as much information as you can get from us in order to inform that, and that's what we're here for. So you can ask us absolutely anything you want to. You can ask Nikki and Emily absolutely anything you want to.
Yeah.
So please do that, and you can either ask questions by putting them into the chat, which I will keep an eye on, or by raising your hand. We're equally happy either way, so feel free to do either of those things now. I can see we already have one in the chat, and it is it's the critical question, actually. This usually is the first one we answer at this one every year. So how did you balance doing your masters with the day job? Emily S., let me come to you on that one first.
Thank you. Yeah, for me, I had to really just think about my working styles. So what worked for me was always doing a couple of hours in the morning and then a couple of hours in the evening. But I would say that there was a huge variety of different people with different work-life challenges on the course, people with children. We had people who were pregnant or getting married or had family things going on, and everybody on the whole was able to manage their time according to what worked for them and around their schedules and their work-life balance. One of the big things for me in my way of working was making sure that I was super prepared. So I like to try and get a head start on course work wherever possible, and taking advantage of Liz and Ollie just from a tutor perspective. So hopefully that's helpful.
Thanks, Emily. How did you talk about the different experiences different people in your group had? How did you all keep in contact with each other during the modules? Yeah,
we were super lucky, and we had a really great study group, and I'd actually really encourage people to use the study group to share ideas and insights, and we were really great at sharing feedback from each other with each other. So we had different course tutors helping, giving different feedback, and we'd make sure that we shared that just to really maximize the value that we got from the course as we went through, sharing tips and advice and also resources, actually. So if somebody found a really great piece of literature, we'd share that with each other as well.
Yeah, and it's really helpful for us in lots of ways as well, because it means if there's a point of clarification that we can provide one of you and then you can share it back with others, then that kind of connection between the cohort and the teaching team is really helpful. Nikki, do you want to say a bit about how you found the juggle?
Yeah, sure. Just a little bit extra on the kind of learning group thing before I forget about it. I mean, Emily's right, we did do all of those things. But actually, what we did also do was just chat quite a bit on that group, in terms of, I'm studying today. It's a bit depressing because it's sunny outside, and then everyone else saying, yeah, me too, all of that kind of stuff, which was actually really brilliant. So on the days when you're finding it tough, your study groups are there to kind of support you. And that was really, really helpful, actually, just to know that, because if you're sitting at home doing it, you feel a bit on your own. And when you know, actually, there's at least another half a dozen people out there doing exactly the same thing, it's quite buoying, really. In terms of balancing it with work, in some ways, I think I felt a bit of a cheat, really, compared to some of the others, in that I had a day off because I don't work every day. I had a day every week where I could do some work. So that was really helpful for me. And I did basically stop doing other things that I might have normally done on my day off, and just kind of really use that time to do a lot of studying. I didn't tend to stick it in the morning or in the evening, because I don't think that's the best time of day for me. So I tended to shove it all into the weekends. My kids are older, so actually that was fairly easy to do, but I can understand why others might have done it at different times. But I think you just kind of find a way that works for you, really. It's similar to Emily. I like to hit it hard and hit it early, and kind of get it over and done with is the wrong expression, but just to have that comfort that you're not coming up against a deadline and it's feeling like too much pressure. And there's something really lovely about thinking, oh, I've written like 2/3 of my words and I'm getting there. But yeah, to be honest, there's peaks and troughs. I think that's the other thing as well. You can see a peak coming, so you can kind of plan for it a bit, I think, and then you get a few weeks where it's not so busy. So yeah, it's just about kind of spreading the load a bit and managing your time, I think, really.
Thanks, Nikki. It's good advice. And yeah, I think you're right. Everyone does find their own approach to this, and it does differ from individual to individual. Yeah. It's also true to a degree that the amount you put in is within your control. So there is hard work involved for anyone doing it, but there's also discretionary on top of that, and the degree of that different students are able and willing to put in will vary. So it is person to person. I suppose one other thing I'd add is with assignments, for example, Liz and I always say, send us a very brief outline at the beginning of what you're intending to write, so we can try and make sure that you're not wasting any of the time that you're investing in this, and we will always do that. So you always get a sense check from us before you spend loads of time writing hundreds and hundreds of words on something. Okay, Liz, do you want to say a little bit about the general time investment required, and also a bit about the amount of time people are expected to spend in workshops and in other sessions that are arranged formally for certain times?
Okay, and so I'd say, Emily and Nikki have both given their experiences. I've asked lots of students over time how long it's taken them, and it does depend. It depends on, sort of how much you want to put into it and what you want to achieve from it, and things like your working style, etc. And we spend a lot of time, particularly in the early stages, giving you loads of hints and tips on how to work efficiently, how to do your reading efficiently, how to, sort of start to look at something and discard it very quickly if it's not going to be useful. And we hammer home to people, do not read, if you happen to be reading a textbook as opposed to an article, do not read the whole thing. You really don't want to. You want to be going in with a laser focus, coming back out. Doesn't matter how interesting the rest of it is. You've got the rest of your lives to read that. Make a note of the fact you want to come back and just keep moving on. So there's all of that. I would say on average, people say, oh, it's about a day at the weekend and an evening, or maybe a couple of evenings during the week. On average, that most people will be spending on it. Some people will spend more, some people will spend less than that, but that's the sort of range. And then when it comes to the actual sessions themselves, we know how difficult it is to actually carve out time from working lives. And so the whole thing is organised around 4 workshops. So there's 4 workshops during the year, each of which is 2 days in length. And those are 9 to 5 both days. They're held in central London because that tends to be the easiest place for people to be able to travel to, because we also get people traveling from overseas to do it. And so you get those 2 days, and that's where we're really introducing all the key concepts, the key theory that you're going to be working with during that module. So it really gives you a good basis for the assignments that you're going to go off and then be doing. In addition to those 2 days, there'll be a couple of online sessions the following week, each of which is typically 2 hours long. And those tend to be modules 1 and 4. It will actually be myself or Donna who will be running those sessions. But Ollie, for modules 2 and 3, we actually have external sort of thought leader speakers coming in to run those sessions. So do you want to just sort of explain who we would typically have?
Yeah. Yes, so this year, for example, we had, so the module we've just done, module 3, we have Rachel Miller talking about collaboration and knowledge management. We have Russell Gross, so Rachel Miller runs all things IC, recently written a book on internal communication strategy. We had Russell Grossman, who is the head of the IC profession for the civil service, talking about how to build relationships with senior people. And then earlier on module 2, we had Hilary Scarlett, who Liz already referenced, talking about neuroscience and how that has an impact on organizational change. During the workshop for module 3, we had Dominic Walters, who is a leadership consultant and a member of the IYC board. And I'm forgetting somebody, Liz.
Yes, you are. You're forgetting Mark Wright.
Mark Wright and Simply Communicate. Yeah.
And Rita Men that we had last year
Rita
as
Men
well.
for the first time this year, who is a well-known academic, has produced a lot of the recent significant research on internal communication strategies, practices, and tools. And we had her talking about IC strategy change, and particularly the role of enterprise social media in that. So, yeah, really good sessions.
Yeah, and I can see there's a couple of other questions that have come up. The workshops are during the week. We've found because people tend to have families, then actually weekdays have been more popular, and it would be a Tuesday. We will typically run them on a Tuesday and a Wednesday, which, you know, sort of makes it life a bit easier. You know, if you need to travel, you can travel down on the Monday evening, and it is possible to join them remotely. We are very experienced at running hybrid sessions and doing so in a way that means that everyone who's attending remotely can feel part of the workshop. So it's not just a question of sitting and listening. We have loads of, the workshops are very, very interactive. The plenary sessions are interactive, and we have loads of breakout sessions where you're talking about what we've just been sharing and thinking about the practical implications. And we make sure that our online colleagues are fully part of those group sessions and the plenary sessions as well.
Thank you, Liz. Okay, I'm going to move us on from this for a bit then. Let's focus for a little while on the management report. So the last piece of work you do, your original piece of research, module 4. Nikki, Emily's question about what was your idea for your final report, and how far in advance did you decide on it? When did the idea appear, basically? Nikki, can we come to you first on that?
Sure. I think probably part way through the 3rd section, I started thinking about what I was going to do for the management report. And probably, I'm sure it was slightly prompted, actually, if I'm honest.
What was your topic, Nikki?
We did.
I did. I looked at line management communication and employee voice within professional services environments. So looking at whether it is different within a professional services environment where they don't have they have more of a matrixed management structure than some other organizations do. So that was the thrust of what I did. But yeah, I think I was very interested in line management communication right from early on, because I had to do an essay to kind of get into the course, as it were. I had to do, you know, a sample piece of work right at the start, which was around line management communication, and it really got me thinking around that right back then. Actually, I found that quite a useful thing to have done. And then as we went through, I started finding employee voice quite, sorry, that's my talk, very interesting as well. And then could kind of, you know, you kind of see how it's two sides of the same coin, as it were, really, in terms of information coming in and stuff coming back. And I was very interested in the professional services area. And then I think we've been given quite a bit of advice about keeping things quite narrow. And for me, that was a way of doing that. So having enough to talk about, sorry, noisy dog, but yeah, not too broad a scope. But yeah, definitely somewhere during the 3rd section, the 3rd topic, I started thinking about it then.
Right, thank you, Nikki. Emily, yours was around app, wasn't it?
Yeah, so mine was around at my company. We, you know, we talk a lot about being a company of belonging, which is something that I'm sure many people on this call are probably familiar with. So I wanted to explore that as a concept, but take the approach from, we're rolling out this global employee app, how does it apply? And that was super helpful, actually, because I think as communicators, we're very used to using these terms, company of belonging, but then using the literature to really drill down into, well, what does that mean for the business? What does that mean for us as communicators? And really, what's the link between communication and company of belonging? For the purpose of my assignment, this most closely linked to organizational identification, but I'll use the phrase company of belongings because I think it's something that we're more familiar with. And actually, I think one of the big learns for me was understanding, well, what's the business objective? What does this mean for communications in detail? And I ended up exploring 3 or 4 subtopics within that theme, where there was a clear link that communications could help to drive it. And that really helped me to, again, focus my assignment on the topic areas and the literature. And since doing the assignment, that's something I've taken away and I use regularly in business conversations now. Well, what does this mean for people? What outcomes are we trying to drive? What behavior change are we trying to drive? And it helps to just, I think, get the business thinking a bit more strategically, but also us as communicators.
Understood. Yeah, that's, I think, well, firstly, it's great to hear that that's something that you've taken forward into your practice. That's always what we aim for. It should make a difference to the way you do your job. Otherwise, we haven't done ours. So that's nice to hear. And I'll come back to that theme in a minute. But also probably worth adding that the stories Nikki and Emily have told are really illustrative in that what's happened is there's kind of a known business challenge that's there, and you might bring that into the program with you. It might already exist when you start on day one. But what you'll get access to over the course of the modules is you'll get a greater knowledge of where the literature is, of what sorts of topics there are that you can explore in relation to the business challenge. And that will get you to that narrowing that Nikki's talking about, the sense of how can I apply some of this theory and evidence in order to try and find solutions to the business problem that's happening where I work. We had one last year where the student, or maybe it was the year before, but it comes to mind, where the student, during the knowledge management session that we ran in module 3, realized that the intrinsic problem for their organization was really one that was around knowledge management, and then they could use the theory that we'd explored then in their research projects when it got to module 4. And that's quite a typical thing that will happen to people. Liz, is there anything you want to add on that? Yeah.
Oh, sorry, was that saying, did I want to add anything? I think that covers it well. You know, all the way through in the program, we've got this sort of laser focus on, well, what are the business issues, etc. I mean, for example, the assignment that you'll do as part of module 2 is all about creating a communication strategy to address a current business issue, and then critiquing that academically. And you know, it's just a theme, you know, that whole thing around it's not just think communication, think business is, I think, a hallmark of the programme, and one of the reasons that we start off by looking at the organisation and the dynamics of the organisation before we ever get into really starting to then hone down into, and how do people take their information in, and then all of everything that sort of expands out from module 2 onwards.
Liz, let me stay with you. I'm going to ask some questions about reading list library resources. So firstly, is there a recommended reading list ahead of the course? And maybe say a bit about the reading lists that are provided through the programme.
Okay. We don't send out a recommended reading list in advance of the course, partly because a lot of the reading you'll be doing it'll be academic journals which are accessible on academic databases that you get to when you're a member of a university. Though Adam will be able to vouch for the fact that if people say, oh, I'd really like to do some reading in advance, I'm certainly always happy to provide a few suggestions of textbooks that that will help get you on your way. Once you actually start the programme, it will be a mixture of books, but increasingly academic articles that you'll be looking at. The reason that we've got that focus is because of the rigour of any piece of academic writing. Academics, basically, the way they work is to stand on the shoulder of giants. They'll always look at, you know, the sort of what's been done before in this area. They'll build on that, and they'll make sure that the evidence, the concepts, etc., really are, everything's evidence-based in what they're doing. So you'll find there's steer very much in that direction. We provide really robust reading lists for every module. You'll see that every single sort of topic that we touch on, we give you all the sources that we have drawn on when we're covering that topic. So you've got that to start with. We also have an amazing treasure trove in the library on the Solent system. It's, you know, there's just so much there, you know, you could lose yourself forever in it. But we also have very good search, they have very good search engines as well, and the librarians there are very good. You know, every module you will have the core reading list with links through to the articles or the books to you know, you're not left on your own. And we've also got Dan, who is, other than Ollie, one of my favourite men in the whole world, because he's our librarian and nothing is too much trouble for Dan. You know, if you're thinking about a topic, so for example, Emily was looking at organisational identification. If she had said to Dan, oh, you know, I'd really like a bit of help in terms of getting started on, you know, finding some sources on this, he will always help. So, you know, I would say I've been so impressed by Solent. We've been with Solent since 2015, and they are so student focused in everything that they're doing. And yeah, I'd say they're really good.
So the second part of Kerry's question was about what access to research papers you get as part of being on the programme. I think that's largely answered that, but it's very, yeah, it's very good. And you will find that when you get to module 4 and you're exploring a new topic, there will be plenty accessible to you on whatever area of theory you want to dive into. When the reading list that we provide through the modules, you'll be able to access from the online learning platform that Solent provide, and everything that's available through their library is linked to that, so you'll be able to click right through to it and access it.
Yeah.
That's the vast majority of the resources on the reading list. Once in a while we find we have to put something on there because it's seminal and because it's important to the content we're delivering on the program that isn't there, but we can always try and help you get hold of those in other ways if we can.
Yeah.
So
actually,
the vast majority of the library. The
other thing that's worth mentioning here is and sorry, Emily and Nicola, don't listen to this bit. The university's Sconal programme has now reopened. It was closed sort of during COVID and in the immediate aftermath. And it means that as a student of Solent, you can actually go to your local university library, virtually all of them are part of it, and say, I would like to join your library, please, and be able to, you know, borrow your resources, etc. And you know, you will be able to do that, and that's very helpful as well, particularly if you are somebody who actually likes to sit down in a library and, you know, read either articles or actually actual physical books.
Okay, I'm going to pick off a couple of questions about the kind of terms and conditions a little bit here. So firstly, in terms of how many places there are on the course, well, 18 students this year. How big can we go, Emily D? What's our biggest number?
I think 25, I think. Liz, correct me if I'm wrong, 25.
Yeah, I've always said I would be reluctant to go above 25. In ancient history, we did once or twice. I mean, this was with the old postgraduate diploma, and it's just not as good an experience for anyone. We don't get to know you well. You don't get to know each other well. So yeah, I think that's the top end that makes it really good for everybody.
And Helen asked a question about whether there's a time limit to complete the program. Liz, Emily, which of you wants to take that? Emily?
Well, so the program itself is 13 months, but we understand things go wrong. There are processes for being able to suspend the course, but you have to complete it in 3 years. But we obviously don't encourage suspension, and Liz will probably touch on that. But if crises happen, we completely understand. You would have 3 years, but the program itself is 13 months.
Yeah, and we would be advising you want to dive in, do it, get it done. Really, that's by far the best way of doing it, and you would have to be able to, you would have to, if you were going to extend it beyond that, you would have to have a very legitimate reason, and it has to be looked at by the university and so on. But generally, it is, people will sort of start in the November. So you'd be starting in November. It's mid-November 2024. And you'll actually finish in early December 2025. It used to be a year. We extended it to 13 months because it means that you can have a slightly more relaxed August than you might otherwise do. So that's why it's that slightly odd timescale.
You need a little break, a mini break.
Yeah,
is welcome for many students, I think. Okay. So gonna go back to Nikki and Emily for a bit. There are a few questions around what's been of most practical use to you in your normal working lives that you've taken from the Masters, and what sorts of results have you seen for your organisations, or I guess your clients in your case, Nikki, from putting that into practice. Emily, can I come to you on that first?
Yep. So I've already touched on the linking communication objectives to business objectives. That was a big one for me. Another area for me is thinking, I've seen one of the other questions. I work for a very large organization. We actually have like 350,000 employees, and I work in a central role. So one of the big takeaways was thinking much more around the culture and the structure of the company I work for, and how, as a communications professional, what I do, really can impact that, and the way in which I approach my work. I work very closely with communication leads in all of our different countries, and I have changed my conversations with them and my approach with them as a result of doing this course, recognizing that what we produce centrally often doesn't work locally, and thinking much more clearly about how I can help those communications professionals communicate effectively in their country, depending on their culture or background. So that was another big takeaway. And I think aside from that, also thinking around how I business partner with different people and taking different approaches depending on my stakeholders, having deeper conversations with them around what are they trying to achieve, so that I'm much less of an order taker and I'm asking some of the more difficult questions to them.
Brilliant. Yeah, and loads of resources we tap into in module 3 that can help with asking the right questions. So
yeah. Oh, sorry, that just reminded me, because another thing is, like, we don't have all the answers all the time. And actually one thing that's been really nice is, because you, over the course of the over the period of the course, you then become very familiar with looking things up, reading, researching. If I'm having a difficult conversation now, I'm much more confident in being like, oh, I don't know the answer. I don't say it like that, but taking it away, doing some research, and then coming back with something that's much more thoughtful, and more aligned to sort of business literature or best practice. And you'll end up with a whole load of books that you love. Then you can just kind of quickly pull on them when you need them, which is like super helpful.
Brilliant. Thanks, Emily. Nikki, same question to you.
Yeah, probably really similar to Emily, actually, I think, even though we probably work in quite different environments. I think a big thing for me was actually feeling that I'd come away with some proper tools and reference points that I could, pull on and sort of regurgitate to clients. Actually, is quite useful. I think, we're all quite self-taught probably as internal communications professionals. You kind of learn a lot on the job, and that kind of desire to want to put a bit of rigor around what you're saying to people and feel truly confident that actually, this is grounded in best practice, and that there is some sort of science behind it, and that you're not just making things up as you go along. So it's really useful to have that. Like Emily, I do also now, if I touch on something, and because we do quite a bit of research with clients, and sometimes something will come up and I'll think, oh, I know we did some stuff about that, and I'll go back and I'll look at it, and then I might even look a bit further afield as well, actually. So I think I'm much more analytical in my approach to stuff now, much more prepared to go looking for other reference points to sort of flag to clients and things like that, but much to the annoyance of some of my colleagues who now think I'm permanently doing some of that stuff. But yeah, I quite like to have that up my sleeve now. It makes me feel much more confident. It has made me think about how I approach my clients in terms of influencing skills and understanding them as individuals and how they might perceive me as well, I think, and thinking about that. I think there was a bit of a light bulb moment for me partway through the course, when I was reflecting on a client experience that I'd had, which went very well at the time. And then afterwards, I felt like maybe they weren't, I'd had to give them some very difficult feedback, essentially, and they took it very well at the time, and then I never heard from them again. And I kind of think, it's all food for thought, isn't it? And you live and you learn, and this is a really helpful process for thinking about, how you can perhaps, handle some of those more sensitive topics better going forward. I think when I got to the end, I thought, what did I learn that was new? And there's a lot that you would say probably wasn't new, but was just a lot better organized, and you just had more models and more facts and more, you just felt like there was something much more tangible there. There's a lot of stuff to reinforce what you thought you already knew, but in a much more academic way.
Yeah, and a lot of alumni say that this is about firstly being able to trust their instincts a bit more, because they sort of understand where they come from rather than them just being instincts, and secondly that they're able to convince other people of them more because they've got the evidence and the rationale to fall back on. I think that's what you both described there, which is great to hear. Thank you. Okay, let's go to when is it the right time in your career to do this, Liz? What would you say? Where do you say someone needs to be in their job role?
Okay,
yeah,
I'd say that there's kind of two categories of people that do the masters, because our content is all very much focused on developing strategy, strategic advice, operating at that level in organizations. So, it's very much, those of you who are familiar with the profession map, it's very much that level 3 and 4 within the IOIC profession map. And so what we'll get are some people who have been in that strategic arena and offering that strategic advice for years and are doing it on that, sort of slightly instinctive basis. And what they want is just that, sort of that underpinning knowledge that means that they can say, this is why I'm recommending this. And, that people will also see things differently as well. I mean, for example, I'd say within sense making, that's one of the topics where quite often people will say, oh, actually, that's made me really think about my practice and, you know, how I might do things differently. So there's that group of people. And then there's the people who are not, they're knocking on the door of going into that strategic, sort of more senior advisory role. And they just want a bit of a help to get there. So certainly, if what you're after is more getting, you know, sort of knowledge and skills that will help you just in terms of the kind of the day-to-day management of internal comms, of channels, of communication planning, etc., then the masters won't be for you. It would be the advanced diploma typically that would be much more suitable. But if you aspire to or are working in that strategic space, that's when it's valuable, I think, because that's what our content is about.
So hopefully that picks up on your question, James, about alternatives as well. Advanced diploma is the other one worth checking out. Emily, Jen, do either of you want to do a brief plug for that?
Well, it's a level, thanks, James. It's a level 6 qualification. So with the with our qualifications, we have our level 4 foundation, a level 6 advanced, and the masters. It's a 9-month qualification and it's very non-prescriptive. You do a collaborative project, so there's a lot of group work on that on the advanced diploma as well, and then you'll do a professional portfolio. And again, the theory into practice is extremely important for the programme.
Yeah. And I'd just add, in terms of level 6, that that means it's kind of the equivalent of the last year undergraduate program. So it's like your 3rd year of undergraduate work, whereas the masters is level 7, which is a master's level qualification.
Brilliant. Okay.
And James, feel free to follow up with us if you are interested in more information on the advanced.
Yes, always on anything, absolutely. Okay, good. Let's go back to Nikki on how did you find the application process?
Well, it was easy.
Can you remember the application process?
I can. It was easy because Emily was brilliant. It's the honest answer. Because you'd have to go back, and fortunately, I'm sure, like everybody, you know, you've kept odds and ends as you kind of go through, and there was some evidence and stuff I had to send over, and I had loads of it in paper format and scan things in and whatnot and everything, and then I just sent it all to Emily and she just helped with it all. But yeah, it was fun. It was all good. It was all good. I mean, you know, can't really remember any. I do remember having to find quite a bit of information. And I remember at the beginning the IT systems feeling like a bit of a dark art, but once the course starts and you're all on and you've had the induction day at Solent, it all feels much more straightforward actually. So yeah, no, it was fine. It was good.
Great. Okay. Anything else we want to say about the application process, Liz, Emily, if you want to say?
Yeah, I mean, one thing I'd add there is, if you, because normally for most people, the application process is that you have to get like an example of a communication plan, an example of a piece of research that you've done, which might be something to do with, you know, if you've run focus groups or if you've done a survey or something, or just some evaluation that you've done, and various examples of communication writing or communication methods that you've used. And then you have an interview with myself, where I'm just really exploring a bit around what your views of and your experience of internal communication generally, and drawing on some of those examples and getting you to tell me a few stories. And then those people who don't have a first degree or don't have an undergraduate degree, it really is not a problem, because what we do is we give you a sample assignment to write, and I kind of go through it and explain it to people in advance, give you resources, etc., that you can use. And then I just use it as a coaching opportunity, because it's a brilliant chance to have a go at writing an assignment, find out exactly, what are the techniques that you're going to need to learn, because, part of the success of this is learning the right techniques. And typically people have said they're really glad they did it, because, it's just been a good learning experience in its own right. So yeah, just don't think that not having a degree is a barrier. It really isn't. And actually, the people who don't have a degree beforehand are often the people who do the best on the program.
We've had people come out with distinctions without an undergraduate degree when they came in, haven't we, Liz?
Oh, any number. Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Thank you very much for that. Emily S., can I come to you on how much support did you need from your employer?
Mine were pretty good. My manager was like super supportive. I did need to, of course, manage my own workload, which I was responsible for, and they did want some assurances that I would be able to apply myself to work and, of course, still achieve my goals and objectives. Other than that, I did the course off my own back. So financially, that was, I had paid for like 90% of it.
Thanks, Emily. And other Emily, you see some of the support that employers provide for students on the programme and provide some assistance. So do you want to say a bit about that?
Me, sorry.
Yes, please.
So I think we find some students on the course are supported by organisations, but it is possible to do it without that. And thank you, Adam, as well, just for good for the application process. But I think it's important because, as Liz and Ollie and Nikki and Emily have mentioned, it is a lot about theory into practice. So I think it's important, even if your employer isn't funding you, they recognise you're studying the qualification, that you talk about the value you're going to add, and hopefully work with them, particularly when it comes to the research project at the end, something you can really offer to support them. So I think it's important to have that conversation, even if you think they're not going to financially support you, that you can support you with organizational data and potentially help with your work.
And I'd add to that actually one of the practical support that a number of organizations do is to give the gift of time. You may not get any hard dosh out of them, but they may be prepared to give study time, and that you will find really, really useful. A lot of not all students, but a lot of students will get that. And just I would reinforce to them the business value that they will get from you doing this, because you will find there'll be things you'll start to do differently from the start. I mean, based on the sort of anecdotal feedback that I get a lot of, I'd say every year I have people say to me, sort of going in sort of halfway through module 1, oh, my stakeholders are saying they're really seeing a difference, which is great. That's great on a personal front, but it's great for the organisation as well, because they're getting more value. So, do reinforce that with them, and that they should be on your side in terms of helping you in any practical way they can as well.
Very true. Okay, let's pick up another couple here. Neve, you've asked about, do people come from a wide range of organisations? And Tracy, you've asked about, is the course relevant to people in very large organisations, including those over 100,000 employees? Answer to both questions is yes. We pretty much always have a really diverse mix of organisation types and sectors represented within the cohorts. So you are guaranteed to meet people working in completely different organisation types and cultures. And one of the things I think that offers real value on the programme is, as well as seeing how the theories apply to your organisation in your sector, in your context, you'll see other students doing it to completely different contexts. That helps to build that discipline of being able to walk into a new organisation, analyse it, and apply your knowledge to it. So I think that's one of the real benefits of being in the type of cohort you will be in. Including very large organizations, we will always have a few people working in very large organizations. That happens every year. And I would say the theories that we cover are as relevant, if not more relevant, in some of those very large environments, because the degree of complexity that you'll be facing into means you need some of those enhanced kind of analytical skills in order to be able to read what's going on around you and work out how best to navigate it. So a strong yes to both of those, I think.
Yeah. I'd add to that you know, so we do have any number of students that are working in global and multinational contexts. And Donma, who unfortunately wasn't able to be here today, is probably one of the most knowledgeable people there is on this topic. I mean, her PhD was looking at sort of at culture, you know, sort of different national cultures and values, I think. And in fact, she's just well, she's published a more recent book, but the one she published about a year and a half ago is actually about managing communication in a global context. So, you know, she really is just such good value. She's great.
Yeah, she literally wrote the book on this. So
yeah,
it's covered. It is covered. Okay, then a couple of questions around attending online. So have we had anyone do the full course remotely?
Well, yes, we've had a number of people who have. Typically, they will tend to be people who, for example, a couple of years ago, we had someone in Canada that was online the whole way through. This year, we've got Kirsty, who's based over in Utah, who has done it all online. And so, yeah, and I know, you know, they are very happy to chat to anybody that's in a situation where you would be doing it online to say what the experience has been, but they found it a very positive one. And I think we helped actually by COVID on this, because, you know, we've got such a culture these days of, you know, sort of sharing virtually, sharing on WhatsApp, etc. Like this year, we've got this cohort who I think they're all going to go off and get married as a group or something. They're just so tight as a group, including Kirsty over in Utah and the people in the Netherlands and
Sana in Finland.
Sana in Finland. And yeah, I don't think it makes any difference to their experience, really, because, you know, they're just communicating with each other all the time. In fact, I've heard WhatsAppers have to take on extra staff to cope with the volume of posts that they're posting on it.
Yeah, they've been a really tight group, and you're right. Those who are less close to each other geographically have been fully included in that this time around. I don't think they feel like they're getting any different experience. Neve also asked about the percentage of students tending to engage online only. I mean, it really does vary. I think we've had workshops where we've had one or two people dialing in, and I think we've had workshops where it's been almost half, probably more than almost half. But as Liz said earlier, we work really hard to try and make sure that it's a fully inclusive experience for those people. Even if it is one or two, that's absolutely fine. We'll find ways to make sure everyone's fully included.
Absolutely. I mean, I think if you can actually physically get to the workshops, there is a benefit in doing that. You know, there's just all that serendipity around the coffee machine. And I mean, well, we all know what it's like because we've all experienced working in hybrid environments now. But yeah, you're not disadvantaged if you're not in the position to make it into the room.
You do get to go for pizza if you're in the workshop.
Yeah, well, no, we've branched out, haven't we? It's
We introduced
Wagamama's
Liz to
now.
Wagamama this
Yeah.
time around. Yeah, so that was, so we're all learning all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. We do after each because they're 2-day workshops. So on the evening of day one, we all go out and sort of have a meal together and are just generally sociable. Or those people who want to and are able to. Obviously, not everybody can, but that's nice.
Great. I am scanning through to see if I've got to them all. Do we have any standard statements we can share to use with employers when trying to seek support from them?
We can support with business case. It's not going to be standard statements, but it's some advice and some support. So Tracy, you can email me, or I'll put our email in afterwards. So yeah, follow up with me there. As Liz has mentioned, the main premise is just the business value that your organization is going to gain from this. And also, I was going to say, it's also often a cascade effect as well, because you're coming to your organization, you may be managing a team or within a team, and you can then cascade your knowledge down. So it's not just your value, you're going to add value to the full team. So
Okay.
But yeah.
I think we have covered all of the questions, but you tell me if I'm wrong. If there's Jen.
I saw one about the cost.
Question.
I thought, yeah.
There was what about the cost in there?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
You know me.
all about the money. Yes. Okay. Who wants to pick that one up?
I can start and then pass to you, Emily, if you like. The question was around, is there any grants like there are for undergraduates to cover the cost of the programme? Emily, we have done our due diligence, and sadly, the government don't have any grants that will fund this programme. So it is, I'm afraid, out of personal pockets. But Emily, I know you can be quite flexible on that, on what we do with pricing plans. And Emily, if you want to add to that as well.
So we can offer flexible interest-free payment plans. They can be set part payment plans. They can be monthly payment plans. The main conditions are just, if you're doing a payment plan, one payment's made before you start the course, around start the course, and one is made before you complete the course. But otherwise, we can be really flexible, to be honest. We appreciate it is an undertaking, and particularly if you are self-funding. And so we want to facilitate, if possible, and support you with that. And as Liz has mentioned, hopefully, the cost, although you may go out and buy some of your own text, the library is fantastic. You've got a load of resources there. So hopefully your additional cost will be reasonably minimal. But yeah, follow up. If you're looking at self-funding or you're looking at business cases, follow up with myself and I can help with that.
The other thing I'd add actually is the reason that people can't go for the standard student loans is because when you do this programme, you're doing 2/3 of a master's and you're credited with the first third of it, which is why we've got as robust an application process as we have, because you have to demonstrate that you do have sort of extensive experience, and that counts for the first third of the masters, the certificate level of the masters. And we designed it that way because people have got that experience anyway. If it was a full masters, you'd be doing stuff that you've done to death and you've got it under your belts. And it also, sort of means that, you are just doing that. We can do the whole thing in that 13-month period, which is really helpful.
Thank you very much. Okay, so Abigail's just asked a question about the research reports and what happens to them. They're not all published somewhere, Abigail,
No.
In part because quite a lot of them are exploring sensitive, confidential issues within the students' organisation. However, for those where there are more general learnings that might be of use to others in the profession, absolutely encourage people to write those up. I'm sure that is Melissa still with us? Melissa will definitely be interested in people wanting to share those sorts of stories and learnings as well. We've got a couple of students who have been talking a lot on LinkedIn about their studies this year. Kate and Sana, Anthony's done a bit as well. So you'll find at any point that you'll be able to tap into the live experiences of a couple of students as they're going through it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Does anyone have anything else they wanted to ask while we're here? Feel free to just unmute yourselves or raise your hand. Have we answered all of your questions? Is there anything we've missed? Nods, I think. Okay, that's good. All right. Let's quickly do some final thoughts then before.
Oh, there's another one. There's one just popped up now.
It's just a thank you, Liz.
Oh, is it? Right.
Yeah, stand down.
That's all right.
Okay. Nikki and Emily, what one tip or piece of advice to people considering the Masters? I will come to you for that in a second. Liz, before we do that, I'm going to give Nikki and Emily some thinking time. Any final message you've got for people considering doing this time around?
I think the questions that you've asked cover the things which we know people tend to be most concerned about, which is great. If people have additional questions that they want to be asking, or they just want to have a chat about the Masters generally, I love nothing more than talking about the Masters. So just get in touch with Emily and say that you'd like to have a chat with me, and I'll be delighted to be doing that, really. I think that would be my only, so an offer as opposed to a point.
Yeah, no, it's and I'm sure one that people appreciate. Emily, I think the same goes for you in terms of some of the things we've talked through over the course of the call. Do you also want to give people the application deadline? Oh, you put your email in there. Thank you so much.
My email's in there, and obviously I will follow up tomorrow with thank you in the recording. But yeah, if anyone has any questions at all, or they want more on the business case, or just have a chat or chat with Liz, as she said, she loves talking to prospective students, email me and we can arrange that. Application deadline, ideally beginning of October, because as we've mentioned, there is an application process. There are several steps to that process. We want to make sure you are fully onboarded by the 5th of November, which is when the course starts, but there is flexibility. So again, just as long as we are aware you're looking to apply, we have flexibility, but ideally don't come to us mid-October fresh off the bat. So just keep in touch with us.
Yeah, and remember, we do have that cap of 25 people, and what we do is as soon as we're able to accept people, so once they've been through the application process, including the little assignment for the people that need to do that. Once you've gone through that, we will let you know straight away, because that makes it so much easier for budgeting purposes. If it is your organisation and they need to get the budget out of this, or whatever it is. So yeah, don't leave it till too late, or you might not be able to get in.
True. And I should actually, good point on that, Liz. I should mention, if people are being sponsored by the organisation, we don't expect you to pay once you've had an offer from Solent. We'd get you to sign T&Cs, and if your company come to you and say, we'd love you to do it this year, but our financial year starts next April, could we come talk to us? We don't expect you to pay up front, even if your organisation is funding you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Important details. Nikki, your final thought.
I think for me, what I would say is I genuinely never felt so supported in anything in all of my life, and that is really about the the wonderful lecturers that are on the course, and I think you just really need to lean into them as a support. Actually, I think it could be quite easy to sit at home when you're writing your assignments and things, and not ask questions, and not ask for support, and not ask for feedback. But literally every time I asked for something, I had a response like within, I don't know, 24 hours. It was very, very quick. I couldn't believe that they could find the amount of time to support my neediness all the way through it. So yeah, that would be my top tip, actually, is just, to take all the help that is available. And there is a lot of help available, and it is really useful.
Thanks, Nikki. We endeavour, we do. Emily.
Yeah, that's a really good piece of advice, I think, from Nikki. And mine would have to be, wherever possible, try and get ahead. I know we've already mentioned that, but I experienced with my research assignment that life happens, and it was because I'd got ahead that I still managed to complete my research project on time, and I didn't need to look into delaying it. You know, things always pop up that we can't predict, so try and plan and organize your time well up front, I would say.
Great advice, Emily. It's totally doable. Just get yourself organized at the beginning and you'll be fine. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think part of that is, you know, if you've got books and things that you need, get them early. Don't leave that to the last minute either. And get really familiar with all the secondhand bookshops that are online, because they're brilliant as well.
Yeah. Loads of great resources. All right. I think we'll close it there. Thank you so much to everyone for your time. We really, really appreciate you joining. We genuinely hope we see some of you come induction day in November. Thank you again.
Good luck, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Right.